It's Teacher Deanna. How are my pandas doing today? I really miss each and every one of you, and I can't wait to see you again. But it's okay that we're far away because I can still read you a story, and I think that you guys still like stories, unless you've grown up too much for that by now. I didn't think so. I even like to hear stories sometimes. Let's sing a song first, shall we? Let's see. Let me find a good song that I like. Hold on. Hello. Hello. How are you? Hello. Hello. How are you? Hello. Hello. How are you? How are you today? How is everybody? We are fine. How is everybody? We are fine. How is everybody? We are fine. How are you today? Yay! Okay, so I'm going to read you guys The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Now, the pictures are small and the words are small, so I'm going to go around to the other side of the book here so you can see the pictures better when I read, okay? So this is The Tale of Peter Rabbit, and the author is Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very large fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Miss Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields and down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had a terrible accident there. He was put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor." And there she is getting everyone ready. "Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out." Then old Miss Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But around the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving his rake and calling, "Stop, thief!" A thief is someone who steals something. And I think that Mr. McGregor thought that Peter was in there and eating the things that he should be, that should be Mr. McGregor's. That's why he called him a thief. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes amongst the cabbages and the other amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. They said, "Peter, you can do it. You can run away. We'll help you, Peter." That's what the little bird said. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not been so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden under a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Ka-choo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. And he tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of the window, upsetting 3 plants. See? The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, and he went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. He also was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wonder about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He kind of looks like Abby, doesn't he? He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him, and Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came upon a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his watering cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it was best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 scritch. Peter scuttled underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon the wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and beyond that was the gate. Look at that. You see the gate way back there? How is Peter ever going to get out? Peter got down very quickly off the wheelbarrow and started running fast as he can go along the straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. You see the 3 little birds who have been helping him on top of the fence? Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him, for he got home in the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down on the nice soft sand floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of clothes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. And I'm sorry to say that Peter was not feeling very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave him a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. I really hope you enjoyed that story. I'll read more stories like that. Maybe next time I'll read about Benjamin Bunny and we can see what happened to him with the cat. Till then, mwah.